The movie begins with a lady being restrained to a chair. She wakes up to hear music that does not fit the grisly situation she finds herself in. However, at this point in films, such music complementing unsettling scenes has become cliché. The lady also hears disturbing laughter and sees a man wearing a mask, its mouth twisted to form a constant evil laugh. He sits in front of her, wasting no time in stabbing his victim in her shoulder. Then he comes to a table that has an assortment of other weapons or tools on it. Taking his pick, this wicked masked man ends the life of the helpless lady. During the opening credits, we learn that the poor woman was not the man's only victim. Other victims have met their fate in the man's lair. A newspaper article shows us that he is known as the Laughing Mask. So we know he isn't very discreet because the city knows about it. Afterward, we see a man sitting near his typewriter. He is Jake Johnson, a writer by profession. He says if he can't find the Laughing Mask, he will make the maniac come for him. 6 months later, Detective Cordova enters the office of the chief of police. The chief Maria tells him the Laughing Mask took a lawyer's life. Maria criticizes Cordova and his teammates for being inept at handling this situation. All these deceased people with no leads. Maria wants a certain detective named Kate in this case, who she considers to be the best. Cordova, however, is of a different mindset regarding Kate. He says she went crazy after a certain case. The scene shifts to present 2 people lying in bed. The man tells the woman they should fly off somewhere, yet she isn't interested and shows it by calling him the wrong name. Her patience wearing thin, she points a gun at him, asking him to leave. Shortly after, she gets a call from work. It is time for her to go. A helicopter lands near a crime scene. The woman we just saw exits from it to join the detectives there. She is the aforementioned highly competent Kate, demanding to know what happened. She learns that a murdered woman was dumped in this area and possessing no ID. The cause of her demise was asphyxiation with no sign of a struggle. They find a heart tattoo on the woman's lower leg. The detective named Brock says he's seen that tattoo somewhere. A certain man is known to tattoo this particular heart on females. Brock claims the suspect is a lowlife who is part of the Ranker group. He is also known to frequent a club called The Barn. Then Kate gets a call from a man who tells her she was supposed to pick up her daughter. She wants to investigate the case further, but it'll have to wait. The Laughing Mask rushes to her to hold her against the car. He simply laughs without harming her. Kate is petrified from what has unfolded and confused about why she wasn't harmed. After he leaves, Kate calls for backup. The next scene has 2 guys sitting in a cafe. One of them is Jake. The other, named Mark, tells him he read Jake's book. He was expecting it to be boring, yet he describes it as riveting. We learn that the book Jake wrote taunts the Laughing Mask. Mark tells him it wasn't a good idea for him to do this. He also warns Jake about all the money Jake will lose if he loses his life. However, Jake reminds Mark of the fact that the works of artists skyrocket after their demise. He seems fascinated by the idea of becoming a martyr. Soon Jake gets a call from Kate, and it sounds like trouble. When the call is over, Jake has to cut this meeting short. Following this, we see Jake at his house with Kate. He shows her the manuscript of the book he wrote, causing her to yell at him in disbelief. She asks Jake if he knows what the Laughing Mask could do to him if Jake publishes his book. Kate informs Jake of her encounter with the Laughing Mask earlier. Through their conversation, we learn that Jake's wife, JC, lost her life at the hands of the anonymous criminal. As if this were not enough, the man's daughter, Barbara, went missing. Kate wants him to understand that the Laughing Mask is their sole lead to finding out what happened to the girl. After Kate's outburst, Jake takes her to another room, where he has many intimidating firearms mounted to a wall. He has been tracking the maniac for months, and has become convinced that the maniac knows what happened to his daughter. He also reminds Kate that she was gone for some time. While she was away, the police did nothing. To make them look worse, the Laughing Mask took the lives of 3 people at that time: a lawyer, an accountant, and a doctor. Nothing tied them together. The only thing that did could be found in a file he hands to Kate. In it, she sees the name Lopez. All Jake knows about him is that he paid each of the 3 victims. Jake doesn't know where all of this leads to, and this is as far as he can get with his limited resources. In the next scene, we observe a man walking in a graveyard with a wheelbarrow. He takes an item standing atop a tombstone and puts it in the wheelbarrow. Afterward, he returns home, placing stuffed animals in different places from his bag. He probably collected them from the graveyard too. Soon he checks his computer, which tells him one of his items has been listed. Once he receives this slightly joyful news, he plops down in his chair, falling asleep in it. A beep from his computer wakes him up. As he checks it, the power suddenly goes out. There is total darkness for a couple of seconds before the lights switch back on, disorienting the man. Out of nowhere, The laughing mask is standing behind him. Horrifyingly, the man steps on a knife, completely impaling his foot. The laughing mask injures him further and restrains him painfully to the floor. The maniac seems to be in the proper mood to start working on his latest victim. As the maniac equips himself with a chainsaw, the fear in the poor man's eyes becomes more evident. The laughing mask lowers the dangerous device, and we don't see exactly what he cuts. It is unnerving all the same as we hear the buzz of the chainsaw, paired with an unsettling laugh. Subsequently, we see Kate in her office. Brock enters, and she asks if he's heard of Lopez. She shows him the information Jake gave her. He sees that those 3 people all got deposits from him. He asks if she did an IP address check to find the location of the computer that made the deposits. She did not, so Brock uses her computer to do so. Upon completing the task, he concludes that the transactions were made in the barn. Just then, Kate gets a call informing her they have another victim. The scene shifts to the detectives occupying the place of the man mutilated by the chainsaw. Cordova informs her that the deceased victim was selling items on the internet that he found in graveyards. Some of them must have been buried. The mortuary specialist Amanda starts autopsying the man. They all get a shock when a toy springs out from his stomach. It is just very out of place. Searching inside the stomach, Amanda says the man's organs have been replaced with toys. Kate catches sight of one of the stuffed toys there. It triggers a brief flashback of her bringing a similar toy to a little girl. She comes to Amanda, asking if she could run a DNA test on the toy. Kate wants to be the only person Amanda will call about the results. She thinks the toy could be Barbara's, Jake's daughter. The next scene has Jake getting ready for an interview. Once he's ready, Mark introduces him to his interviewer Angela. The show is about to air live. Angela starts off by telling her audience that Jake's book has been a bestseller for the last 2 weeks. In the book, he goes into factual detail about what happens. He has also written about catching the maniac. Upon being asked if his wife was murdered and his daughter was kidnapped, Jake confirms they were. He also says he wrote the book because he needed closure. Even though it was in story form, he needed vindication. Jake says, "People like the laughing mask are cowards who have to create a persona to hide behind their failures." Furthermore, the man says all the money made from his book will be donated to the Center for Missing Children. He won't be receiving any of it. Mark is dumbstruck. Seems like this information was not conveyed to him based on his expressions as the interview proceeds. Jake admits that for the past few months, he's been living in fear. But today he is no longer afraid, and he refuses to stay silent. Jake boldly ends the interview, saying if the laughing mask wants to find him, he knows where Jake resides. Following this, we see Kate entering the barn. She instantly attracts the attention of a man who takes a seat near her. He says they are always hiring and discloses to her that he's in charge of the place. This prompts the bartender to say he isn't, which makes the man rudely yell for him to be quiet. Bluntly oversharing, the man tells Kate how the former manager got his head removed. While they talk, Kate notices the interview with Jake on the television. It seems to destroy her mood, and she leaves the club. After that, we see Jake sitting in his gun room with one of his guns in his hands. He feels paranoid, but ready for action. He talks to an imaginary laughing mask, saying he has done his part. Now it's the maniac's turn. At the other end, Mark prepares food in his house. In the midst of doing it, he notices that the music that's playing on his stereo starts repeating like it's broken. He tries to fix the glitch, getting it to work again. As he returns to his food, an oldie starts playing in place of what he was listening to. This forces him to go back to the stereo to reset it. When he sees the front door open, grabbing a knife in this fearful moment, Mark turns off the music prior to returning to his kitchen. To his horror, he witnesses the laughing mask eating his food with his back toward him. Knowing Mark is behind him, the maniac gestures for him not to try anything, but he does it anyway, causing the laughing mask to spill hot water on Mark's face. Then he knocks Mark out with a pot. Later, the laughing mask is busy painting, using only the color red. He eerily turns to a restrained Mark with a glinting knife in hand. He cuts Mark's chest to collect the blood that spills out into a small tube. This is what he uses to continue painting. It's all red because it's all painted with blood. He shows Mark the painting before claiming him as his next victim. We return to Jake to see him waking up in his chair. He doesn't like how he fell asleep, compromising his safety. Once he exits the gun room, he finds liquid on the floor that looks like blood. Turning on the lights, however, shows him it's just water. The washer malfunctioned. Jake is relieved, but not for long. When he opens his refrigerator, he gets the biggest shock of his life, causing him to drop his cup. Mark's head is inside a pickle jar in Jake's fridge. Later on, Kate pays a visit to Jake. She tells him yet again that he should not have published the book. She also says the laughing mask does not want to end Jake. He wants to torture him. That is why he's going to target every person Jake cares about. Kate wants to get Jake into protective custody, something Jake disagrees with. Kate tells him Lopez runs the Rancor. Interestingly, everyone whose life has been taken thus far has been associated with them in some way. If they can find Lopez, they can use him as bait. Kate wants Jake to let her handle this. Soon she goes to the kitchen and finds a key in the cabinet along with a note that she pockets. Brock is investigating any signs of forced entry, but finds none. It is the first time he's been on a scene that has no evidence, prompting him to give credit to the skilled laughing mask. Afterward, we observe Jake looking at a framed photo of him with his daughter. Kate comes to assure him that they will find her. Changing the subject, she asks him about the key she found. Jake says it's a master key for tenants in case the other key gets lost. His family made their money in real estate. Most of it was sold, yet a small place was kept in an area Jake calls Pine Hills. Subsequently, we see the laughing mask in his bizarre home. As the laughing mask walks inside his home, we see it has a decorated interior. The man in the pig mask cries and our attention is brought to a newspaper article on the wall. Walking along, he comes to a restrained man wearing a jester hat. The laughing mask messes with him as he did with the others. Since the captive man keeps making grunting sounds, the laughing mask shoots him, causing his demise. After that, Kate arrives at a birthday party for kids. The man we saw her talking to earlier is there to greet her with an attitude because she's late. Kate is not keen to play nice either. What neither of them know is that the laughing mask is watching them from the woods. While Kate is looking for her daughter, the girl walks in the direction of the maniac. Soon enough, Kate finds her, and the girl says a clown gave her a balloon. She points to where the supposed clown went, which prompts the detective to investigate. Searching in the woods, Kate becomes surrounded by ominous laughter. Her search leads her to enter a dark building. She keeps searching cautiously with a flashlight. There she finds a figure with a maniac's mask on. She shoots the person down, but it turns out to be a dummy. The real laughing mask springs up on her from behind, knocking her out. Kate wakes up, hanging upside down. Like he always does prior to dealing with his victims, the maniac starts playing an oldie. Kate demands to know why he's doing this, only to get laughed at by him. The laughing mask toys with her for a short time, till Brock enters the building frantically searching for her. His appearance causes the laughing mask to vanish in the shadows. In the next scene, Kate lies in a hospital bed. Cordova comes to her, asking if she got a chance to learn who the laughing mask is. She might not know his identity, yet she knows he is systematically eliminating Lopez's acquaintances. She says they need to get to Lopez before the maniac does. Cordova advises her to stay in bed. She is no longer safe. The members of Rancor are now after her too. He also asks her where she got the bank statements from, but Kate cannot tell him. He insists he needs to know everything she knows if they are to catch the criminal. Kate can't argue with this. Therefore, she says she got it from Jake. When Cordova leaves, we focus on Kate holding the key she found in Jake's cabinet. The scene changes to Jake occupying his gun room. Getting an incoming call from Kate, he cancels it. He walks to his couch, where he recalls an image of Barbara sleeping on it. The moment the image of her vanishes, Jake becomes sad. Adding insult to his injury, the lights turn off, and he hears laughter. Jake knows, with terror in his heart, that his biggest enemy is nearby. He rushes to his gun room, but all his guns are missing. Fortunately, Jake was smart not to put all his eggs in one basket. He runs to the kitchen to retrieve a hidden gun from a drawer. He uses it to shoot down the laughing mask upon catching sight of him. Once Jake comes to the man he just shot, he is shocked to discover the maniac is no longer there. He's behind Jake, grabbing him to hold a knife to his neck. At this point, Jake urges the laughing mask to cut him. He is tired and ready for this to end. Soon Brock arrives at the scene, causing the lethal struggle between the two to end. The laughing mask does not like having to deal with more than one person at a time. Like always, he disappears into the night. Shifting to Kate, she arrives at a house and uses Jake's key to open it. She found the location on the note that she pocketed from the same cabinet the key was in. Entering, she looks around with a gun in her hands. She searches for a clue until she eventually finds a framed photo of Cordova with someone unfamiliar. It surprises her. At this convenient moment, Cordova arrives. He tells Kate he advised her to stay in the hospital, as he points a gun at her. It doesn't take long for her to realize he is Lopez. The man is proud to inform her that now the Rancor group runs this town, but she tells him the laughing mask is going to find him. This distracts him, and Kate uses this chance to flip the table on him. Cordova gets her down, yet she manages to hurt him. When she equips her gun, he runs out the door. Kate lies on the floor, perhaps relieved she is still alive. As she lies there, she sees a journal under a cabinet. Later, Kate reads the journal at a playground. Amanda calls her to say she has the DNA results on the stuffed toy Kate gave her. The dirt on it was from the graveyard, and some of the DNA was from Barbara. With this information, Kate instructs Amanda to get a team out to the graveyard because she thinks Jake's daughter is buried there. Meanwhile, Cordova is at the barn. The Laughing Mask is also there to stealthily eliminate 2 of his Ranker members. One of Cordova's friends asks him if they should be running now. They have been exposed by Kate. It's only a matter of time before they are caught. But Cordova says he is tired of running. Suddenly, the lights turn off, and the masked maniac comes out with 2 guns pointing at the Ranker gang. The club's music also gets replaced by one of his oldies. Cordova orders his crew to shoot the maniac, only to have the Laughing Mask shoot them all down instead. Cordova's big friend is left alive. He gets in front of the Laughing Mask, removing his shirt to prove his physical strength. However, the Laughing Mask has neither the time nor the desire to engage in such activities, so he puts a lethal bullet in the man. With Cordova being the last member left, the maniac takes his time, having fun toying with him. He asks the bar lady to get him a drink before he shoots Cordova in the leg. Pausing his atrocities, the Laughing Mask tips the lady as she brings out his drink. Meanwhile, Cordova is suffering from his wound, and the Laughing Mask gives him some more bullet wounds. It is his gift to the vile man. When he asks for mercy, the unstoppable maniac takes his life. Later on, Kate comes to Jake's house. She asks him if he ever heard of Cordova. To this, he responds that he heard her mention him. Jake seems to be feigning confusion regarding why she's asking about him. Kate calls his bluff. She claims she's making sure Jake does not know about JC's affair with Cordova. She adds that JC went to the Wicked Man after she took Barbara's life. This causes Jake to sit at his table feeling troubled. Kate asks him if he knows about all this and demands that he tell her everything he knows. She informs him about what happened to Cordova at the barn. Jake's expressions betray him. He is exposed. Realizing who Jake is, Kate points her gun at him, saying the Laughing Mask of Vengeance was in his book title the entire time. He is sick and needs help. Therefore, she tosses handcuffs to him, instructing Jake to put them on. Furthermore, she says she knows where his daughter is buried. Jake is not keen to go quietly. He swiftly pushes her gun away and brings her down. As Jake tackles Kate, he gets a flashback of JC talking on the phone, saying she left her husband. After she ends the call, the Laughing Mask appears. He is the one who tosses the journal under the cabinet before knocking her down. Out of the flashback, Jake is now wearing the maniac mask. Kate points another gun at him, but he stabs her. We get a moment of Jake spending quality time with his daughter in a flashback. It was him all along, driven to insanity by his thirst for vengeance. At a different time, the Laughing Mask watches the news of this situation in his hideaway. The chief of police says they will not rest until he is behind bars. Then he turns off the television and turns to a restrained Brock nearby. Jake, behind the mask, displays a pair of scissors to the captured detective. He shows Brock the disturbing action he is going to perform with them. Thankfully, we don't see it happen, but the off-screen deed leaves a gory image in mind as it concludes the film.